The Chicago Bears have gone out of their way to publicly praise DJ Moore in recent days, but those comments don't tell us anything about whether or not they'll actually trade the wide receiver this offseason.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. On the show today, we're going to go through some of the recent praise that DJ Moore has been receiving publicly from Ryan Poles, Ben Johnson, and the latest addition, wide receivers coach Antwaan Randle, all raving about what DJ Moore brought to the team this season in the first year of this new coaching regime. And it feels like it's in contrast to all of the trade speculation and rumors of, well, they seem to love DJ Moore, so they're not going to trade him then, right? I'm not so sure that anything that any of these Bears leaders have said really changes the trade outlook in any way, shape, or form. So we'll hear the praise and go in specific about what they're saying and what they're not saying in that praise and how that affects the potential for a trade and why it seems to be an independent process here, that maybe they trade him, maybe they don't, but I don't think this praise tells us much of their plans in either direction. I want to thank you for making the Locked On Bears podcast your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network covering your team every day. And what brought this back up was an interview that Bears wide receivers coach Antwaan Randle did on WGN TV. I think it's called like Gametime Sports with Jarrett Payton, son of Walter Payton, a great TV sportscaster in Chicago. Nothing but love for the work Jarrett Payton does. And he got the rare Antwaan Randle interview, and they talked about Caleb Williams and pretty much all of the wide receivers, with Randle being the wide receivers coach. But one of the clips from that interview was circulating around Bears Twitter about all the praise the wide receivers coach Randle was heaping on DJ Moore. And it was like they talked for, he gave like 3 straight minutes of just raving about DJ Moore. I'm not going to take the clip and play it all for you here. You should go check out, if you look at on Jarrett Payton's social media accounts or the WGN TV YouTube channel, you can find the full interview with Antwaan Randle. I would highly recommend that you listen to it. But like, just to briefly read through and paraphrase some of the quotes there that he gave about DJ Moore, right? He talked about how much growth he saw from Moore this offseason and how they asked more of him, pun not intended, at the wide receiver position, and how he stepped up and gave it all. Like he said, this year the special was on display in terms of his route running, in terms of his run out of the catch, blocking for his teammates, catching the ball. He had some unbelievable catches this year, and the effort that he put in to become a better player in the offseason and the season continued on, it was great. It's what you expect as a coach. It's what I wanted to see as a coach, Randle said. He talked about how DJ Moore is the veteran in the room, and when you talk to your veteran about what you want to see your wide receiver room look like, he starts to lead that. That's when you're all like, all right, he gets it. He understands the team, and like praised just everything DJ Moore was able to do this season. That followed from the end of the season press conference when Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson met with the media for the first time after the playoff loss. And Ryan Poles echoed some similar sentiments of DJ Moore. That's a much quicker clip, so I'm going to play it for you briefly here so you can hear the general manager, his words of a similar sentiment, and also what both sets of quotes were missing.
Right. With DJ, made some of the biggest touchdowns this team's ever seen. Also, not the numbers that he put up a couple years ago. What's kind of your overall perspective on his fit this year and then moving forward?
Yeah, I'll use his words. He didn't care about stats. All he cared about winning. It's the most winning DJ's ever had, probably since high school. That's all he cares about. In terms of roster, like I said, we got a lot of decisions to make and figuring that out. I think what stood out about DJ this year is the level of toughness rubbed off on our team. Guys, if they were dinged up, like they almost had to go because DJ was going. He was able to fight through a lot. Got a lot of respect for him.
So it's clear from both Poles and the quotes we read from Randle that they're clearly like happy with what DJ Moore did this season. That part I agree with and am confident in declaring. But what you didn't hear in any of those, I think it was about 45 seconds of Ryan Poles and more than 3 minutes of Antwaan Randle L praising DJ Moore, was anything about the future, this upcoming season, next year, the long term or the short term. Every single word they talked about DJ Moore was past tense. I mean, I guess in some ways it was a little bit of present tense, but from the past, as like talking in the past when he came in, like kind of talk like in the present, but like everything was what he did this year, what he did last year, how he grew this year, everything from the previous 12 months since the Bears coaching staff came in and took over. And nowhere in there did Ryan Poles say he's an important part of what we're going to do next year. Nowhere in there did Antwaan Randle L say, and he's going to be even better in 2026, or we're excited for what he's going to do in year 2. Like, there was nothing in all of those comments from multiple Bears leaders about him in the future. And that to me is the real sticking point here. No one has even hinted outwardly at like confirming that he's for sure going to be back here. Ryan Poles says we got decisions to make. Antwaan Randle says, hey, he was great and I'm so proud of everything he did. I believe that. But it was not he's a pivotal part that we need back next year. He's a guy we're looking forward to having back. He's going to be a long-term leader for our wide receiver room. Like, everything they liked about DJ Moore already happened. And so that to me is continuing to leave the door open for a potential trade, despite how much they do like DJ Moore. Like, I believe them that they like DJ Moore. I also think they're going to seriously consider whether trading DJ Moore is the right move for them this offseason. And you can see where, if that's even on the table as a consideration, not necessarily plan A, but a consideration, then there's no reason to come out publicly and say anything negative about DJ Moore. You certainly wouldn't want to hurt his trade value. And I think the more you praise DJ Moore and try and shift some of that public perception from a fan base that's a little frustrated about him, I think the more you try and boost his potential trade value and trade stock. I mean, as much as we say, well, okay, something the coach says in the media isn't going to affect trade value, you'd be surprised, especially when NFL owners meddle, especially on other teams, and say, well, I heard all this good stuff and they push for wanting this player more and more, or vice versa. I heard all this bad stuff and want him a little bit less. I mean, I don't want to put too much value in saying, oh, that the media can shape so much of the value, but I don't think it's nothing either. I also don't think that the Bears' willingness to trade DJ Moore will be much of a reflection of how they feel about DJ Moore. Like, all of this praise, I don't think really changes any of the likelihood of a trade or not, because their willingness to move DJ Moore, I believe, is going to be less on how much they want to move him and more about how much they could get for him. So we'll take a look at what it would take for the Bears to actually trade DJ Moore, and why these comments and whether they praise him or don't, I guess, doesn't really change much of that in my mind. Next on Locked On Bears.
Hey, it's Matt Derry from the Locked On Lions podcast. The people I love depend on me. If I'm gone, the financial responsibilities don't disappear. I didn't want my family figuring things out during the hardest moment of their lives. That's why I knew only one place to go. I chose life insurance through my friends at Ethos. Ethos makes getting life insurance fast and easy, 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. There's no medical exam. You just answer a few simple health questions. You can get up to $3 million in coverage. Some policies are as low as $30 a month. I love the folks at Ethos. Protect your family with life insurance from Ethos now by going to ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. In as little as 10 minutes, you can get the free quote and up to $3 million in coverage at ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. That is ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Application times and rates may vary.
This episode of Locked On Bears is also brought to you by Gametime. There's nothing like being in an NBA arena or any other live sporting event. The crowd, the energy, the moment. But getting tickets, though, that part hasn't always been so simple. But that's why Gametime has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast without the hassle, because it puts the advantage back where it belongs, with the fans. I love Gametime because you can see the all-in price up front, and you're not going to run into any of those surprise fees at the checkout that make your tickets cost way more than you thought they would. And you can see the view from the seat you're interested in purchasing before you buy it to make sure you're getting exactly what you want with your purchase. Everything is quick, intuitive, and stress-free from start to finish. I used it for basketball games, football games, comedy shows, theater events, concerts, you name it. They've got it all in Gametime. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDON, locked on, for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. And remember, it's gametime.co, not .com. I believe the Chicago Bears value DJ Moore and would be perfectly happy having DJ Moore on the roster this upcoming season. The threshold as to whether or not they trade DJ Moore, I don't think has anything to do about an eagerness to get rid of him, right? Everything Ryan Poles and Antwaan Randle are telling you is, hey, we like this guy. We like everything he did for us. He's someone that they value, period. They're not committing super publicly to valuing him as a part of the short or long-term future. But I do believe there is not an eagerness to say, hey, we just got to get rid of this guy because he's causing X, Y, or Z problems, or he's just not good enough or not what we want. Like, that's not going to be the case. And I don't see that as the factor that determines whether or not DJ Moore gets traded this offseason. It's not a question of, will the Bears decide they're done with DJ Moore? The question is, will the Bears be able to get enough in a trade offer to make it worth moving on from DJ Moore? I think what we see is DJ Moore becoming more expendable now than he has been in the past, and he's maybe a little bit more of a luxury than a necessity. And just because he's a luxury doesn't mean then you got to get rid of him and try and squeeze the trade value out of him now, but it does mean you can keep a more open mind to the possibility that, hey, maybe he's not as 100% necessary to the overall success of the offense when you do have Rome Odunze growing as a young receiver, Luther Burden looking like a stud young receiver, Colston Loveland looking like the best young tight end in the NFL, and you still have Cole Kmet and DeAndre Swift in the backfield playing some of his best football right now, and an offensive line that's blocking well. Like, you can see where the Bears might look at this and say, no need to be in a hurry to get rid of DJ Moore, but could they afford to get rid of DJ Moore? Yes, but they're not going to be all willy-nilly about it, just do it just for the sake of getting rid of him. Like, the threshold of whether they'll trade him or not is, well, what can we get for him? Like, to me, the only way they move DJ Moore is if it happens in a trade that is a net positive for the Bears, that you're subtracting DJ Moore, but in doing so, you're getting so much for him that you believe your team is getting better, right? It's not about just subtracting DJ Moore for the sake of subtracting DJ Moore because you want him out of there, but you're saying he is a certain amount of value to you, but maybe he could be more valuable to another team that's more desperate at wide receiver. And in return, you improve your team somewhere else that's a weakness. Like, essentially, wide receiver is a strength. You perhaps have a surplus of talent at wide receiver, and you say, we can afford to subtract at wide receiver if it is going to significantly add at another position of need. And that transaction, that equation, has to result in a net positive for the Bears. That, yes, you are going to lose something on offense and at wide receiver if you trade DJ Moore this offseason. So that can only be worth it if you feel like your team as a whole is getting better, even while losing something of value on your offense. Now, we'll have time as the offseason goes on to try and piece together, like, specific, what is a wide receiver of DJ Moore's caliber go for on the trade market. That gets messy because a lot of times when you see wide receiver trades, you're just trading them for a draft pick. And historically, most NFL wide receiver trades, it's like wide receivers traded to team in exchange for draft picks. But if we're talking about moving DJ Moore for a roster upgrade, that has to be a player for player swap that draft picks may be involved in, but it makes it a lot harder to have equivalence if you're trying to figure out, like, like people will always talk about Max Crosby, right? Like, could the Bears use DJ Moore in a deal to the Raiders to get Max Crosby? Because the Raiders are presumably going to draft Fernando Mendoza, number 1 overall, and they could use a playmaking wide receiver like DJ Moore to help bring their young quarterback along with a new offense, a new head coach, a new coaching staff that isn't even in place yet, right? Okay, so hypothetically then, what would a DJ Moore for Max Crosby trade look like? Well, we don't really have any examples of a team trading a 1,000-yard caliber receiver for a top-flight pass rusher. Like, we can't compare and say, oh, well, you remember 2 years ago when this team traded a wide receiver for a pass rusher, so that's probably about the going rate that DJ Moore would get. Like, there isn't a perfect apples to apples type of comparison that then makes it really hard for us to sit here and speculate, like, okay, then what combination of draft picks with those players is truly fair for both sides? Well, it's going to depend on what other wide receivers are available in free agency, the NFL draft, or other potential trade wide receivers, and what other pass rushers are available in free agency, the NFL draft, or potentially available for a trade. But I don't think we should necessarily keep our focus so narrow on just Max Crosby. He's the big name. There's plenty of reasons why it might make sense for both sides, why the Raiders may even potentially be willing to move on from him, and we'll have time this offseason to talk about a potential Max Crosby trade package. But I also think we should expand our horizon here to include other pass rushers and maybe also just other players at potential positions of weakness for the Bears, right? The idea is not like that you have to trade DJ Moore to upgrade your pass rush. It's to make your team better in a net positive. And so that could come in different ways, right? I mean, there are other pass rushers beyond Max Crosby. You could throw in, not all these I'm not necessarily endorsing all these, but names that could be available. TJ Watt from the Pittsburgh Steelers, if they're trying to maybe reset a little bit, move on from a slightly older pass rusher there. Bradley Chubb from the Miami Dolphins, who new coaching staff there might just want to clean up a little bit. Kayvon Thibodeau from the Giants, new coaching staff there. He's on the last year of his rookie contract, a 5th-year option now, so maybe they don't want to have to pay him after they drafted Abdul Carter, and they've got other pass rushers in the mix there. So, like, any of those guys could be feasible potential DJ Moore trade options, right? It's not just Max Crosby. So then all of a sudden you have leverage, right? You could say, well, Raiders, if you want DJ Moore, we're also talking to the Giants or the Steelers or the Dolphins or whoever. So you got to up your offer. And the Raiders could say, well, we're talking to these teams about their wide receivers, so you got to up your offer, right? It's a messy potential trade negotiation to try and predict here. But like, I wouldn't put it past them to upgrade on the interior of the defensive line. A Dexter Lawrence or a Deron Payne, if the Bears want more interior pass rush, especially if they find a way to move on from somebody like Grady Jarrett, or if they try and retool the interior, it's pretty much just Dexter and Jarrett in terms of guys that are under contract. Oh, and then Shamar Turner, of course, as the rookie, but he may end up playing on the edge too, so that's up in the air. I even think you can't rule out a potential cornerback, but more likely safety is one that probably isn't super likely. But with Kevin Byard being a free agent and Jaquan Brisker being a free agent and also the two Bears backups being a free agent, you could see them maybe you opt to re-sign Kevin Byard, and then could you trade for somebody like Budda Baker from the Cardinals or Jesse Bates from the Falcons? Again, two teams, new coaching staffs, maybe want to reset a little bit on those defenses and get some younger or cheaper guys in the mix there. Like, the salary can work out if you're trading for someone like DJ Moore as opposed to, the Bears trying to absorb all that salary on their cap. Like, it's not to say that, how the math on that trade would work, but there's different options besides just Max Crosby and even besides just pass rushers. So the key is that no matter who that trade would be, you got to feel like the Chicago Bears are getting better. And I don't think trading DJ Moore for a draft pick, even a high draft pick, is a net positive on your team right now. Like, I don't know that DJ Moore would garner even just straight up a first round pick in a direct trade. It's not, again, we can debate that later, but like, even a first round pick, like today, right now, I would rather have DJ Moore. I guess we've seen first round picks like Colston Loveland and Roma Dudes, they have big impacts and it's better for the long-term future, but like, you are trying to have the best team for Caleb Williams right now. Like, your Super Bowl window, time to attack and be the best team you can be, is right now. That draft pick could turn out to be something valuable, but you know what DJ Moore is. The draft pick has a chance to not be valuable, to not pan out, to not have a very big year one impact, even if it has a much greater impact in years 4 and 5. Like, there's merit to trading for draft picks and maybe even trading DJ Moore for a package that includes draft picks. But to just say, hey, we'll subtract for the offense for a draft pick, to me doesn't quite feel like enough of a threshold to say, yes, let's make that deal. Like, unless it's a ridiculous package of draft picks, right? If a team gives you 2 first-round picks or something where it's just like, all right, you're blowing me away with offers or a first and a second or, something that wouldn't be realistic, then we can start to talk about whether the value just becomes, cashing in, selling high there. But like realistically, there's not a package of just draft picks to me that feels like it's worth the subtraction on your offense for losing DJ Moore, especially because I think Bears fans especially might be just a little too eager to move on from DJ Moore and might overrate the problems that he's had that are real, but maybe not as devastating as everyone makes it out to be. So we'll take a look at why maybe we shouldn't be so eager to move on from DJ Moore, but certainly open to it if the right deal emerges next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff, the final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite, you're riding with the underdog, or building one last same-game parlay, this is the game everyone's been waiting for, where predictions turn into plays, stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels bigger. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to the final whistle. If you're a new customer to FanDuel, you can bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Make it count, because after the Super Bowl, the season is over. So last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. A lot of Bears fans are quick to ship DJ Moore out for the first good deal that you get. And I understand and I'm on board with the idea of trading him for the right package that makes the Bears better. But I also think you can see a path where maybe you do end up regretting trading DJ Moore. That maybe we shouldn't be so fast to assume, well, they don't need him anymore. They got Roma Odunze and Luther Burden and Colston Loveland and Cole Kmet and DeAndre Swift. This offense is set. They'll be just fine without DJ Moore. That's a strong possibility, but I think sometimes we just assume every young player on your roster is going to keep getting better, and most importantly, every young player on your roster is going to stay perfectly healthy, because why would they ever get injured? No one ever gets injured in the NFL. But like that's the thing, is like I think back to even just this past season where Roma Odunze misses 5 games, the final 5 games of the regular season, with an injury. The Bears offense got by at wide receiver. They were just fine with DJ Moore and Luther Burden, and then, Jade Walker and Olamide Zaccheaus kind of filling in there. Like they got by fine without Roma Odunze. But if you had taken DJ Moore out of that mix because you traded him to another team, and then say Roma Odunze gets hurt, all of a sudden you're playing the Packers twice with Luther Burden, great, and then Jade Walker and Olamide Zaccheaus. Like that's not necessarily a good enough wide receiving core for this offense to function at its best. And it's tough to feel like you're one injury away from really hurting at wide receiver. Now, some teams are that way and get by, but it's a luxury the Bears have right now that I don't think they should be eager to give up on, especially modern NFL. You can never have too many wide receivers, too many weapons on offense. It's worth pointing out as well, this past season, Luther Burden missed 2 games with injuries. I think one was a concussion about midway point in the season, and then towards the end, I think he had a foot injury that kept him out of a game down the stretch. And all that came after, you may recall, Luther Burden starting his Bears career injured, suffering some kind of soft tissue injury at rookie minicamp that kept him out of all of OTAs and mandatory minicamp and held him back until he got to training camp, and I think partially contributed to his slower start this season. That's not to say that either Luther Burden or Roma Odunze is now quote-unquote injury prone, but even just this past season, we saw both of them deal with injuries. And again, if one of them is out, you're fine because you have DJ Moore and the other one, but without DJ Moore, you start to get real thin real quick at wide receiver. And of course, like the Bears can replace DJ Moore with a veteran free agent, or you could even draft another wide receiver. Like it's not to say that your only options are well, you'll just have the same wide receiver core you had this year minus DJ Moore. No, they can replace him, but the Bears aren't going to have a ton of salary cap space to make a big move at wide receiver. And I wouldn't expect them to use an early draft pick at wide receiver, even if you trade DJ Moore, because you've used first and second round picks on Rome Odunze and Luther Burden. So whether you add a third or a fourth round pick in there, or you add a mid-level wide receiver, I still don't necessarily feel great about my wide receiver core if one of Odunze or Burden is injured. Could you get by? Absolutely. And that's why there's real merit to the idea of trading DJ Moore. I just think we're so eager to assume that, hey, with Rome and Burden and Loveland, you're good to go. And Komet, you're totally fine without DJ Moore. Your offense will be just fine. When all those guys are healthy, I agree. I think you are just fine when all those guys are healthy. But in the NFL, we just don't know how consistently all those guys will be healthy. Maybe they'll be fine, but you can't 100% count and bank on that. Especially also after this past season, we saw Rome Odunze struggle with some real drops. And you wonder a little bit about his development. Not that he's going to be some bust at wide receiver, but as a top 10 pick, I think we were all expecting Odunze to be 1,000-yard guy, emerge as that number one guy, and maybe we got our expectations a little too high, a little too quickly. I still have a lot of faith that Odunze will look like a really high-level wide receiver in the NFL and is on his way to doing so, but we've seen some more bumps along the road maybe than we anticipated, and so I don't know that we can just instantly assume that year 3 Rome Odunze, all that's going to be solved, and he is now going to be a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL and a dominant threat every single play that he's on the field. Like, there could still be some bumps in the road. There could be bumps in the road for Luther Burden in year 2 that we're not expecting, because we weren't expecting them for Rome Odunze. So, and of course, we're not expecting them for Luther Burden, but those kind of things can happen there. And I think we should also keep in mind, too, like, just how valuable DJ Moore was to this Bears offense. Like, I'm not even here to be the big DJ Moore supporter. I'm fine with trading him. I don't think he had a great season overall, but from Ben Johnson's perspective, they lined DJ Moore up at running back and fullback and handed the ball off of him and ran a bunch of routes with him out of the backfield. He was a very versatile piece for this offense. He was second on the team in targets this season, second in catches, second in receiving yards, second in touchdowns. Like, it's not easy to just replace that. And you feel confident that you can with Loveland and a Burden and everybody and Odunze just doing more. But like, again, you're subtracting all of that from your offense and having to replace it somewhere. Let's not forget, like, Ben Johnson trusted DJ Moore to throw a touchdown pass against the Cincinnati Bengals this past season. Like, there's a real confidence and a faith in here, right? They were not hiding DJ Moore or taking the ball out of his hands or showing any sort of sign that they didn't trust him. So I think there's no reason to not suspect that'll continue. And I think that's why I believe them when they heap all this praise on DJ Moore. And I believe that a trade is not totally out of the question, because I bet you could do a lot of those same things with Luther Burden as he gets deeper into the playbook here as well. But ultimately, like, I despite the praise, I don't think DJ Moore had some great season. I think he is expendable for the right price if it upgrades your team, but I'm not going to be eager to do so. And I'm not going to trade him just for the first deal that pops up. Like, I'll throw him in if I have to get a true difference maker type pass rusher. But if I'm not getting a difference maker in a trade for him, someone who I really think is special and someone I can't obtain unless I throw in DJ Moore, then I'm keeping DJ Moore and keeping this offense intact and seeing if that group can reach an even higher ceiling in 2026. Certainly when any DJ Moore updates or reports or speculation or praise comes out, you can be sure we'll break it down for you right here in the Locked On Bears podcast. So make sure you hit the subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, because that's going to be the best way to keep up with all of our daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. Thanks for making the Locked On Bears podcast your first listen today, and hopefully every single day. We especially love our everydayers that are tuning in 5 days a week to get your Bears talk. If you want to take your everyday listening to the next level, you can check out our new Everydayer Club, where you can get access to an ad-free audio feed of Locked On Bears that's compatible with your Apple Podcasts, Spotify feeds, any of your podcasting apps, just without the ads. And you can also get an invite to our members-only Locked On Everydayers Club Discord server, which includes a group chat just for Locked On Bears listeners. If you want to check it out, head to the website lockedonbears.supercast.com. sportsbook.com to learn more. You can find that link in the show notes or descriptions wherever you're listening to the podcast. Otherwise, you can always keep tuning in the same way you always have. We're free and available on all platforms. We're never going to go behind a paywall. This is just an added tier way to listen if you want to take that to the next level. But no matter when and where and how you tune in, thank you, first of all and foremost. And I hope that each time you check out Locked On Bears, it gives you another opportunity to bear down.